Let's do it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 75th episode of Tequila Tuesday, a very special episode. We're joined today by Corporate Bro, courtesy of Bravado, where he's an advisor, ambassador, some strange part of the company. I don't know exactly what he does over there. If you've paid attention to what Ross has been up to over the last few years, he's grown a hell of a following, one of the best follows, not just on LinkedIn, also on Twitter, where I follow him, and he's probably all over the place on other places that I don't venture too much. Beneath all the humor and the comedy, he's a super sharp guy, knows a lot about sales. Very good job branding himself, built himself a nice little entrepreneurial empire. And he's going to talk to us today about why sales sucks, and that's why we should all be in it. So without further ado, Mr. Corporate Bro, welcome to Tequila Tuesday.
Thank you, sir. Honored to be here with all of you today. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't have a 90-minute speech, and I think most of you are quite aware how much sales sucks or can suck. There's quite a few ups and downs in this game, but to me, I'll just say flat out, the reason to be in sales, it's the best skill on earth that there is. It is the single thing that can get you to where you want and what you want. I kind of liken it to the service industry. If anyone's ever worked in the service industry, or, I haven't been in the military, but I can imagine the suffering that goes through that is builds character in a lot of ways, right? And, I wish every single person on earth could at least spend 6 months in sales, especially marketers, especially them. It should be a prereq to go into marketing, to, switch to the soft side after having experienced life in the trenches for at least a little bit of time. But, I think a lot of people, especially now, well, especially before, but even still now, they view sales a lot like Glenn Ross, right? It's the old white dude with a cigar in the car lot, forcing people to buy something that's shitty. And then they never talk to them again. And it all goes away, right? But if we know anything, if this community knows anything, it's a lot more strategic than that. There are numbers that you can work with. There is a business case. There is actual altruism in this game around helping people and companies solve problems. And so for me, a lot of what sucks about sales is the stigma, right? You tell people you're in sales, you're like, oh, shit, now I don't trust you immediately. And more likely you're not particularly intelligent. And, to me, that's what I love about sales. It's the great equalizer. Yeah, you don't have to go to an Ivy League school. It doesn't matter where you're from. Right? If you can sell, you can be successful in this life. And so that's why I've kind of taken it, for me personally, to be a sales evangelist, if you will. And that's not to say, of course, like there's so many shitty salespeople out there. There's a lot of shitty people that do a lot of different jobs, a lot of shitty engineers too. Right? Unfortunately, ours, we're in front of customers. We're in front of an audience. So it's not as easily swept away. Bad engineers, they just kind of get fired. We never hear who they are, but bad salespeople, they are the front lines of any company, right? They're the athletes on the floor. And so people are watching, and when it goes badly, we get to hear about it. And there's an element of pride that I take in that. And I think there's an element of pride a lot of people should take in that, because a lot of people I've talked to, like, oh shit, dude, I could never do sales. And the truth is they probably couldn't. But I do think a lot of people should have to try it, should have to experience it. It's I get to tell people I went to a really good business school, and not a single person in that class with me was in sales. And so now all these really smart people who are Ivy educated, they're coming to me and asking me, how do they run a sales call? They just got $20 million in funding, which I would love to get $20 million in funding. And they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to go. They're like, well, how do we land our first customer? Right. And so I always say you either build the product or you sell the product, and everything else is fluff. It's obviously not true. Most of the rest of a company is just built to support sales and the sales efforts, whether it's B2B or B2C. And so I don't know. I kind of like the hate and the adversity and the people who don't want to do it. I kind of like doing things that other people don't want to do. And so if there's any place to be safest, and I know I'm going to say this right now in the midst of tens of thousands of people getting laid off, but if there's any place that's safest, it's as close to revenue as possible. You can quantify your worth for better, your value for better or worse. And obviously that's very black and white. It's a lot more nuanced than that. But, you know, if you're the top salesperson, it's much more unlikely that you get let go when times get tough because you're needed. In fact, in one of the classes that I took at school, this guy, former chairman, current, I'm not sure, former or current chairman of JetBlue, he said in front of the entire class, your CEO works for your top salesperson. And then, of course, everyone in the room looked at me and I was just like, what's that like? And so instantly, you know, there's some credibility there. People who know. People who are in executive leadership know how important sales is. It may take them a while to learn it, but they learn it. And a lot of the folks who are in executive leadership are good at selling. They may not have been in sales, but they may be good at it. And they don't realize how good they are at it. So I don't know. I think I'm still on the crusade to put sales on the map, to make people respect it. I think people more and more are, especially because of tech sales, because it's not quite, people just still have that B2C kind of view of it, selling cars. So I'll stop right there. That was my noble rant. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Happy to hear anybody else's thoughts.
What do you think is behind the push, if you will, for sales to be a little bit more respected, considered, you know, to be a little bit better light than it was 10, 20 years ago? I don't think it's changing as fast as some of us would like it to.
Yeah.
But I do agree that it's changing. I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think's behind that shift?
I mean, I do think, and this may be controversial to say, is that it's just people are realizing that salespeople aren't the stereotype they think they are. And so many of the folks that I knew in sales, like, they're just like everybody else. They're not like, you don't meet them and feel like kind of cringed out by them. I think they're a lot more educated now than people, you know, gave them credit for. And I think schools are starting to add more programs, not fast enough. I mean, Stanford has one class on negotiation and one class on building and scaling sales organizations. I know Harvard has one, and the schools that are actually starting to put, you know, dollars behind it, Chico State's one. There's one in Texas, UT, that's got a pretty good program as well. But it's starting to actually be taught as a skill that's meaningful. And I think that's a big part of it. More and more people are in the sales world. More and more people are meeting other salespeople and being like, oh, this actually sounds pretty cool. These people are not what I expected. This world is not exactly what I expected. So I think there's just a whole education component to it that, you know, the ability, thank the internet, or thank just the fact that this, like, the industries, like, this concept of sales has expanded so much. But yeah, I agree with you. It has not happened quickly enough. And I think in the long term, sales is going to consolidate in a huge way. I think that's coming. There's going to be a reckoning for a lot of sales.
Tell us more. What does that mean? Tell us more about the consolidation of sales.
We're watching what a meltdown looks like when you overscale and you throw an extra 100 SDRs at something, or you watch Salesforce hire 30,000 people over a pandemic that was clearly inflating all their numbers. And now we see what happens when we kind of come out of that and watch things slow. I don't know a single sales rep. I'm sure there's some out there that are like, can we please hire some support for me? There's just too many deals for me to close. Holy shit. Like, I just cannot close all this business. I need someone else to scoop this up for me. And so sales as a function, I think, in businesses are going to shrink drastically. You're going to have kind of like your SEAL team 6 of salespeople, and you'll still have some support functions and so forth. But I think, candidly, as much as it hurts me to say, is customer success is going to be wildly important, which still has an element of sales. It's a little more like you guys know, it's customer centric, a little more customer centric, and making sure people are using the products and so forth. But the elite kind of sales closers will be the last of the Mohicans in a lot of ways, or just significantly reduced in terms of how many they are. I don't think the spreadsheet of, if we hire this many sales reps, like, we will close this much revenue, that, like, equation is not necessarily going to work in the future that so many VCs have used for so long.
So Ross, when you talk about the consolidation of sales, it sounds like you think it's going to be demand driven or lack of demand driven. Are you also talking about, like, automation of low level tasks and things like that?
I mean, I think AI is going to have a huge impact on pretty much everything we do across all industries everywhere. So I think there will be some of that. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be demand so much of it as the way people want to buy is changing. Like there's a reason you see PLG companies that are so successful now. Like this, we're in the era of transparency, whether it's like me posting severance packages on Instagram or like pricing just on websites.
Yeah.
You know, companies and the way they work are just being held to the fire. They're being called out, and nobody wants to have to spend extra time trying to find pricing and so forth. I also don't believe that people are going to go make $1 million purchases without talking to a human being. So when we start looking at those complex IT rip and replace, like the high tech products, you still need salespeople for that. Did I ever think Glassdoor needed salespeople to sell CPC? Absolutely not. When they started downsizing there, I was like, this makes so much sense. When they instituted self-serve, everyone was like, what the fuck? Self-serve, really? What about us? Well, sorry. Like CEO Ross is like, we don't make any fucking sense here. Like this is not a high skill job that somebody needs to necessarily do. So it makes sense. And so we're going to start seeing some of these products. I think advertising in particular is going to start. You see it with Facebook. You can just buy it without talking to anyone. But you still need customer success there. If you're spending $1 million a month with Facebook, you want a contact there in case something gets thrown off.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of think that's where it's going. Yeah, no vaporware, unfortunately, anymore. There's a whole other, we can talk about how companies are raising $1 billion valuations on a product feature that is contingent on another platform that they don't even own. We can talk about that too, but we don't need to spend any time on that. We don't have to talk about bloated tech evaluations.
Let's talk a little bit about something that you did, which was early on, get away from working for somebody else, working for yourself, building this business in this creative way, relevant for a lot of different reasons, but also relevant primarily for the course of this conversation, because all these people here are thinking about or are in the process of building a brand, working on gigs on the side, doing coaching or consulting, or have gotten an evangelism kind of gig or two, or want to go that kind of route. They all want to be you when they grow up. Talk about
find a better hero.
Talk a little bit about like why you did that, when you knew it was time to do that, and maybe, you know, some things that you screwed up that you would, looking back, be like, okay, y'all, don't do this. That fucked me up.
Yeah.
Here's what you could do differently. Can you talk a little bit about all that stuff?
Yeah. And before I do that, I have to preface and just be brutally honest and tell everyone that, like, I'm very fortunate, and I come from like a family that I was never going to be on the streets. I can make all the mistakes I wanted. And like, as much as it was like, get a job, get the hell out of my house. I always felt empowered to take enormous risk, and I will always continue to take enormous risk. So I have to just acknowledge the fact that I come from a place of privilege to do that in the first place, which I think is a massive advantage for when I kind of took the jump. You know, I sold for about 10 years. I admittedly got to a point where I was so frustrated that a guy who truly hated school sat down for 8 months and studied for the GRE and took it 5 times so I could go to business school. It was the first time in my life I was like, holy shit, I might be intellectually curious. That's cool. I should tell my mom. But a big part of that was driven around just like anger. Like, truthfully, I was just sick of doing the kind of sales thing. I felt like I could sell anywhere. Was I going to President's Club every year? No, I wasn't. I didn't care that much about it. I wanted to make another video. I wanted to like go after something that I was passionate about. I think we all want that. And so I'm saying this because it took me 7 years before I went to this thing full time. And I probably could have jumped earlier, but I was scared. And I was like, I don't know if I can make enough money. And I mean, Scott, you know, as a like solopreneur, the business goes as you go. Like, if you have a bad day, the business does nothing. No one's going to pick you up. No one's going to do it for you, right? You can't hide. So there's an element of discipline. Now, when I graduated business school, you know, one of the things I talk about at Stanford, oh, you want to be an entrepreneur, or, oh, like, you know, you can do a career pivot. And these, you know, these consultants, Yale graduates, BCG for 3-4 years, like, they're like, yeah, I'm going to change jobs. I want to like go into product or like start something. And most of them went back to BCG or Bain or McKinsey, and that's how it just ended up happening. And I was like, God, fuck that. That's such a waste. Like, that's such a waste. I really, for up until that point, nobody, like my real name wasn't really out there. Like the whole Ross thing has been very recent, the last couple of years. And there wasn't like a coming out party. I kind of like slowly leaked it out, but that was because I felt like I didn't want to work for anyone else anymore. And maybe this could burn some of the bridges for me without having to do that. And obviously, like, no shit, like you do this, you keep doing this, other doors are going to open. And so it kind of became, I think I can probably do this and support myself. I just have to like be diligent and I have to be disciplined. And early on, a lot of the mistakes I was making was turning stuff down because I had this and still have this like imposter syndrome. Like, why is it me? Like, what do I like? Why would anyone want to listen to me? Or why am I qualified to do this? And it's like, the answer is I wasn't until I did. Like my first speaking gig was in front of 4,000 people at SAP. Like the head of worldwide sales. Like,
okay, wait. Just repeat that one more time so everybody can hear that again and let it sink in.
Like my first SKO gig was in front of 4,000 people. I could not see the back of the room. There were TVs hanging down like in airplanes so that you could see me up on the stage. And I didn't sleep for like 3 months before that. Like if I go watch myself speak, I have huge black circles under my eyes. But the woman's name is Crystal Beaumont. She's the CEO of Talend now. But she was like, do you do this? And I was like, yeah, for sure. No, I speak at SKOs all the time, dude. What are you talking about? Obviously. And so I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I went out and I did it. And after that, I was an SKO speaker. That was it, period. And so I wish I had said yes earlier. I would say no all the time. I was like, I don't have like my shtick. I don't have like a bunch of jokes. But I realized I could talk about what I knew, which was sales. And in and of itself was like, there's a lot of jokes you can make about sales and salespeople. And, you know, that was a big piece. The other piece and kind of one of the regrets I have is not charging more earlier. You know, you devalue yourself always. Like I could sell a piece of software, no problem. But if I had to sell myself, it was always hard. And I would like not even want to have those conversations. Like, this one, they probably like don't even really like want what I'm doing. Like I don't want to waste my time with this. And so and just to give you like, this is, I don't know how else to do it without data. I went from speaking for like $300 to $30,000 over the course of 3 years. And it's obviously there's like a huge range in there, but you know, it's, you kind of have to just keep pressure testing that and keep stretching that and seeing what does it feel? What does that value feel for you? Like I'll say when speaking in person, it just eats me alive. I'm going to Orlando tomorrow and I'm speaking on Thursday and I haven't slept for a week and I've done this a million times now. And I just like can't eat, can't sleep. All I want to do is just practice and practice and practice. And so I'm still scared. Does it get easier? Like a little bit. I know if I execute now, I know it will be good. I've never like not executed. That's the other piece is you have this expectation of yourself of what you want to do. Nobody else knows what that is. Nobody has a clue if I miss a joke or if I like say something slightly different or if I, you know, missed a line here and there. No one has any fucking idea but me. And so I can always go back and watch the tape and be like, you should have done that one a little bit better. But people still come up at you at the end. They're like, dude, that was great. Right. They don't know. And so you're going to get your head's going to be so far up your own ass. It's going to be hard to get any perspective. And that's the other piece I would say is just like take stock from time to time, like sit back and realize you've done a ton of shit in your life already. You've done a ton of things. You've been successful in most of the things that you've done. You failed a bunch, but like failure is whatever you decide it is. Right. Like, and using that to kind of say, yeah, no, I'm here right now. Like, and obviously I want more. We all want more. We're all ambitious, you know, and it's all baby steps. And sometimes the way I describe it, everything moves like a caterpillar. And so it's like, you're growing, you're doing really well, but then you kind of stop, but then the back has to catch up. And so it's kind of like this. It's all the stuff in the back that like the floor has to keep moving up, right? Even though it feels like the front side, the head isn't moving as much, the back side is. And so it's never linear like that. So
Ross,
that was very long-winded. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's great. Go ahead, Ryan.
Question. Yeah. So Ross, you started creating content about sales and startups way, at least from my perspective, way before most people that are doing it now. when you started building the Corp brand, did you have an understanding for like what kind of demand you'd eventually start driving on platforms like LinkedIn or Instagram? Like the reason why I asked that is because, oh, and I also just want to know about the comedic side of it. Like how much of that, you said the word, you used the word shtick, like how much of that has now become your identity comparatively speaking to Ross, and like how much do you feel pressure to
Be funny.
make jokes and have that as a part of your
Yeah.
personality?
Dance, clown.
I know, like, yeah, I'm curious.
It's real. No, that's real. I will tell you, I never started any of this with any intent other than I like making videos. Like growing up, I made the home videos. I made some pretty epic war movies in my backyard back in the day. Like what ended up being, and people always ask me about like finding passion, like what are you passionate about? And for me, it was always just what I defaulted to when I was bored. I would just write like a little sketch. I would just like write a joke. And even before that, like I was the funny guy in my friend group entirely because I was highly insecure. And it was the Eminem rap battle. Like if I shit on myself first, then who can hurt me? No one can hurt me. And so that's always been my shtick, has been self-deprecation. And then, you know, self-deprecation about myself as a salesperson. Turns out it just happened to be the one thing I learned, or the biggest thing I learned, was sales is pretty much the same everywhere around the globe. Like I've gotten to speak to teams in APAC and Australia and LATAM and they all think marketing sucks. They all think product never listens to them. They all think their quotas too high and their territories suck, right? That like, it's just, it ended up being universal. I wish I could tell you I had intent to like capture this audience or this blank space where nobody was. That's just not true. I just did what I liked doing. Like I said, I didn't make any money for 7 years. I just liked going to the office and making sketches and trying to figure out how I could cleverly depict Deal Desk being trash. The answer was I'd make Deal Desk a literal dumpster. You know, it was just like, what are these little things that would pop up in my life that I could make bigger? I think like one of my first vines ever was, you know, the chairs that lean back too far and you think for like a split second you're going to die. Like we've all had that. We've all felt that. And like that was the video. It was just leaning back and then me shrieking like a small child. That was it. So it just sort of started falling into place isn't quite the right word. I started finding things that worked just because I kept doing it. I started realizing things that didn't work, and I started to kind of build the creative engine. And it just kind of started as going into the office on the weekends and sneaking into the office and shooting videos, or when my managers were away. And it just kind of grew from there. Zero intent. Now everything is much more intentional. The brand, the business choices, but it's all born out of just, I like making stuff.
Right on. Let's go to Dan Cowan.
Yeah, first off, that like going into 2023 video was hilarious. I keep watching that one over and over. Those dance moves are pretty epic. So
that was just primal. Wish I could tell you I rehearsed that.
You talk about kind of discipline, right? I mean, I think that's the key to any successful salesperson. What type of discipline do you really focus in on then, right? You got to build the brands, you got to build the videos, focusing on the industry. Can you maybe just expand on how you view your discipline and getting out there for multiple streams?
This may be kind of a cop-out, but my discipline has to be everything else. Like, so I'll just like, I work out a lot. I play a lot of golf. I still play competitive baseball. I go to therapy. Like I try to make it a point to see at least one friend once a week, because for me, I got so consumed by this, and you start to put so much pressure on yourself. I need to be working. Why am I not working? And I still feel that at times, but I was never able to like, let it breathe. So the discipline for me is to not do it. Like I just always want to be doing it. And if I don't, then I'm not very well rounded. And honestly, my mental health suffers in a massive way. And then there's no space for me to exist freely in the work part. So I admit, like, I think the discipline came from playing sports my whole life, waking up at 4 a.m. to lift, and those miserable days practicing before the sun came up. But I think it's also a lot easier when you start doing it for something that you want, right? The discipline comes a lot easier in that regard. It's just not letting yourself get consumed by it. So I think when I talk about discipline, it's much more of like a mental discipline. And how do I keep my brain stretching in other ways? How do I not wrap my entire identity around, in this case, corporate bro? You know, there was a question earlier about how much is Ross and how much is corporate bro. I mean, the way I describe it is corporate bro says all the things that Ross wanted to say at work. The humor is the same. The sarcasm is the same. Most of it's still the same, but I am working actively on, instead of saying, oh, I'm corporate bro, I am the guy who plays corporate bro, because there is the guy who plays corporate bro. And the more I focus on that guy, the easier it is for corporate bro to exist, truthfully. So I hope that answers a little bit. It's a little roundabout, but that's, for me, the discipline. It was just about diversifying and like just not getting too consumed. That was the discipline that was required for me to kind of let this happen.
Love that. I think a lot of people resonated with that one. Wayne, let's go to you.
Yeah, cool. Ross, good to meet you for the first time. I show some of your videos to my wife because I'm crying with laughter at them, and she just looks at me completely strangely, and she's like, "Fuck you, that's not funny." I'm like, "It really."
Put her on the Zoom and let's talk to her. Let's sort this out right now. She in marketing, just be honest.
No, she's I don't even know the internet exists, I don't think. But anyway,
she goes to another school.
Yeah. Anyway, I find it funny. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
So yeah, I got a question about brand building and platforms. What's your take on the platforms you think people should think about when building their brand, and specifically the risks of focusing on just one? I mean, it's hard enough to focus on just one, but what's your take there? Because you've done a great job of building your brand.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So I was fortunate enough that I kind of like grew with the social game. So it started in Vine, right? For me, it was 6-second videos. Okay, the bar is not the, yeah, I guess the content expectation bar is super low. Nobody's expecting like a polished Key and Peele skit or like a TV produced level thing. So 6 seconds, I could tell one joke. Then Instagram came around and was like, let's make video. And they made it 15 seconds. I was like, holy shit, I can make 2 jokes. And then expanded to 1 minute. And then like YouTube was always kind of a thing in the background, but I will tell you, I just made the content I wanted to make and I put it on all the platforms. I was fighting against the algorithm for my entire life. YouTube wanted long videos, but I was making short videos. Instagram was like, we're actually a photo sharing app, but like we're going to kind of allow video. Now we fast forward all the way to today, like Vine failed. Somehow TikTok is thriving. YouTube just launched billions and millions of dollars into YouTube Shorts. It was all about like, how long could you get someone on the platform? Like LinkedIn, and we can talk about LinkedIn for forever. I mean, LinkedIn for me, we have a love-hate relationship, which is mostly me hating them. But now like, it's a huge spot for me to differentiate. Most creators, the big name creators you see on TikTok and YouTube and elsewhere, like they're not on LinkedIn. And so for me, there just seems like there's a ton of opportunity there. All of that to say, I wouldn't think that hard about it. I would make what you want to make and put it on all of them. And, you know, like you can get to a point where it's like, oh, I need to cut it vertically and then I need to cut it like landscape here for this platform. That, fuck that. Like just make it how you want to make it and then get the reps in, and you'll start to kind of figure out what works where. I'll post something on Instagram that will straight up kill and then be worthless on TikTok, and then the opposite, right? And so it's just kind of the only thing I think about with my content is what's too offensive to put on LinkedIn. That's the only thing I'm thinking about my content, and then I just don't put it on LinkedIn. It's the only place I like hold back a little bit. So
where do we see the offensive stuff? I want to watch that.
Instagram
Oh.
or TikTok. Yeah, Instagram or TikTok. Those are the two. So cool. I don't think too much about platform right now, candidly. Just try to be everywhere. And all it takes is one piece of content to be everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Thanks.
Cool. Let's go to Dale.
Thank you, Jill.
Hey, Ross. What's up, man? Thanks for joining.
Hey, brother.
I love your
stuff,
stuff, man.
Thanks. Dude.
Quick question. So I'm kind of an odd sales leader. I actually grew up as a coder. So like that conversation that you said about like, we're just all dumb salespeople. So grew up through that process. But when I jumped over to sales, my realization was like, sales really sucks. Like I had that same realization. I'm going to date myself like back in 99. I was like, I gotta get into sales. But then I realized my question is, why does sales suck? Is it the salespeople or is it the sales leader?
I think it's neither. I think it's the mental strain of being classified as a number, and in no profession are you put to the test of hit numbers or die. It's never quite that blatant in any other role anywhere, except for professional sports. If you suck, if your batting average is shitty, you get sent to the minors. If it's shitty there, you're gone. So, I mean, there's always going to be this like dichotomy between, is it the salespeople? Like, is it the leaders? I think sales leaders, it is their job to elevate salespeople in whatever way that is. And I think actually it ends up being a lot more emotional elevation and helping them kind of manage through the highs and lows. To me, I think the best salespeople that I've ever met, I have no idea if they're headed to President's Club or if they're missing that quarter. I just don't know. They don't put their personal self-worth on where they're at. And I struggled with that for probably 4 years before I realized, why am I sitting here like at 9 p.m. digging through Salesforce, like trying to set up stuff, like just because I was like almost there, not quite there. And yes, I mean, I suppose I should want to get there, but I realized similarly, like I had to step back. And so I think sales sucks for the reason that there's just a lot of pressure, and we're quantified so blatantly. And there's a lot of things out of your control in a game that is supposedly like so clean cut. You either hit numbers or you don't, but there's a lot of factors in it that you can't control. And I think that's what makes it exceptionally hard. It's not always input equals output, as much as our management wants to say activity metrics equals this. And there are some like formulaic ways to think about it, but there's just a lot out of your control still. And that makes it very mentally hard.
And I guess that's why I think like from a leadership, like I've had really good leaders and I've had really shitty leaders. And I think where I thrived as when I was carrying a bag, where I thrived was with good leaders that understood those variables that you run into and understand the highs and lows that you end up getting into in the whole sales world, and can buffer you against the CEO, the boards, everything else, because they understand it's the people who are like, no, just go make more dials. Or you get like some marketing leader that's like, I gave you 400 MQLs that aren't in your ICP.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, I think that's it. The best sales leader are able to be shields and then swords when they need to be. And so
one of the reasons why the best CEOs are actually former salespeople.
Right. They get it, and they get it. And every founder is a salesperson. Like that's but some people are a salesperson first and become a founder. Exactly. Some people are a founder first and then they become a salesperson. Exactly.
Well, the worst founders are probably people that have no idea how to spell revenue. So there you go. Right, Wayne?
Right. It's true. It's true. But I mean, there's a whole thing we could talk about sales management and so forth, but
well, let's get to Peter Benson. You're up next. Burson. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Scott. Yeah. So, you seem to have a lot of experience in doing SQL, and I apologize, I haven't looked at your videos. Jumped on Tequila Tuesday. I will catch up.
You've saved a lot of time in your life. I'll say that.
But you seem like to have all this anticipation at speaking, and it's funny. I have similar experiences, and for me, it's because I just strive for excellence, and I just want to be so perfect and deliver such a good quality experience for the audience that I think that's why I had to give a talk this morning, and I woke up and my brain started going, and I'd just like to hear what your how you are. Is that the similar issue that you face?
Oh yeah. I mean, the anxiety is real. I will not sleep the night before. I will not sleep probably Wednesday night, and then I'll have to wait all day because I don't speak till 7:30 that night. So that's even more miserable. So there's some interesting things that you can do. I'll give you like one thing that I do, and this is based off of a study that a woman named Amy Cuddy did. She's PhD, studies basically like this concept of power and how can we influence ourselves in power in times of need, in times of needing to be powerful. And so she did this study. Basically, she had people sit for 2 minutes. One group of people sat in a high power pose. So the one that she uses is called the Wonder Woman pose. And I'll try and demonstrate it, but it's like standing like this, standing up, just like this for 2 minutes. And then she had people kind of like sitting like this. She didn't tell them they were sitting in high power, low power poses. You can Google high power, low power poses, Amy Cuddy. The people who stood in a high power pose for 2 minutes had 20% reduced cortisol and an increase in testosterone. Now, that doesn't mean they could lift a bunch of weights, but testosterone is the hormone responsible for assertiveness and comfort in difficult situations. And so you can physiologically change your body in 2 minutes of a power pose before a big presentation or a job interview or any situations that you find yourself under high stress. It's really lame to stand there for 2 minutes like Wonder Woman, but it works. For me, I'll work out, I'll do some push-ups, just try to get rid of the nervous energy. I'll run my speech a million times, and then I'll just try to get myself very psyched up, because a lot of what is required from me is just high energy. It's when I lose the energy, that's when I start to stumble. And so, as for me, as a former baseball player, I was a starting pitcher. So my entire week revolved around a single start day. My entire process was built around 6 days before my next start. And so I had something different for every single day. It doesn't have to quite be that extensive, but having your kind of game day repeated process, whatever that is, I highly, highly recommend that, and use that every single time, because you'll start to condition your body. You'll start to feel physiological changes before you actually go out and speak. And so to respond to your question directly, I feel the same way. I will always feel the same way. It's nerves, it's excitement. And to me, I have to rationalize it and say, I'm not scared. I just have I have a really good opportunity to do something great right now. And that's why I feel this way. Not because I'm scared, but because I have a huge opportunity. I obviously don't want to waste it. So reframing for yourself also helps. Assuming you're not in a life and death situation, most of the times we're scared is when we have the opportunity to do something great.
All right, Nathaniel, let's go to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ross. Your stuff is not only funny, but I think reflects a pretty deep understanding of the market and the sales environment. Is there anything you're actively doing behind the scenes to keep the pulse of the market?
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking to salespeople all the time. I still do advisory work for early stage companies. So I hear it from the founder side. I get to speak to VCs. I hear it from their side. But I also am fortunate enough that I have a large sales audience who are telling me what's happening all the time. And then just the lived experience. Like I said, I did it for 10 years and it hasn't changed drastically. I still every day sit here in fear that I'm going to become the out of touch VP who has no idea what the hell's happening on the sales floor. But a big part of that is that I do try to respond to as many people as I can that message me. I'm getting here's what's happening here. Here's what's happening there. And so I do have a pretty streamlined way to hear about what's going on. I also just read a lot of the news, but until there's a massive, massive overhaul in sales, I think it's going to remain relatively consistent to where it is. But that's, Chat GPT. We'll see what happens with that. But that's the reason. I get to speak to a lot of people. I pick up the phone, still said, so to speak.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, Chase, let's go to you.
Hey, Ross, thanks so much. Love your content. I have a question for you. When you were starting out early and you actually had your career on the side, you were doing the side hustle, the corporate row was your side hustle.
Yeah.
How much time did you dedicate to that? And how did you juggle all these different deals at one time and make sure that you stayed focused?
Yeah, it was hard. I think the truth is, and whenever people ask me how do I come up with ideas, or how do you write comedy stuff, the antenna has to be on at all times. So the thing is, I could be sitting there in a one-on-one, or I could be sitting there in a team meeting or on a phone call and some shit would happen. And I'd be like, oh my God, I have to talk about this. And so I just kind of kept a running list on my phone of things that would pop up. Almost all of, until 2014 through 2018 and part of 19, I was not sneaking into offices. I was sneaking into offices for part of that time. This was a nights and weekends thing. So I would write at night, I would plan out my scripts, and there would be days when I would shoot, when I was technically on the job. It was one of those things where if I was doing what I needed to from a sales perspective, my manager didn't give a shit, truthfully. He would just be like, wait, is this one about me? And I'd be like, no, of course not. Different manager. You just do the same shit. But it was, I had to do my sales job first. And so it was nights and weekends. It's still majority weekends. I mean, the bar for content, thanks to TikTok, is going down so I can shoot in my apartment. But I mean, if you scroll back a little bit, most of my videos are in an office. And the only way I get an office that's empty is a weekend. So I'll pick a Saturday and I'll show up and I'll pay my friends in coffee and egg McMuffins and Starbucks breakfast sandwiches, whatever the hell they want. And then I'll buy them lunch too. And we'll just hang out and shoot videos. And it's honestly pretty fun. But I will come in prepared because I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I will have a bunch of scripts ready, and then other things come up. But it was about preparing beforehand to go out and execute and get it done with as minimal distraction and as minimal like disruption as possible. So it was on the side. Nights and weekends is the short answer to how it started.
Got it. Chase?
Got it.
Cool. All right. Matt Mangold, let's go to you.
Yeah. So when was the last time you got pitched and either loved it or hate it, and what stood out?
Last time I got pitched and loved it or hated it. I get pitched still a fair amount, but I haven't the last time I was truly blown away by something was, and this is going to sound like a plug, but it's just not, Scratchpad. I kind of told them off a bunch of times. I was like, I don't want to talk to you guys. Like, I have no interest. Scratchpad's kind of a stupid name. It sounds kind of dumb. But eventually they kind of like wore me down. I was like, all right, look, world's closing down. The NBA season just canceled. I got nothing else to do. So let's talk about this. And it was the first time I was ever truly blown away by a product. I was like, oh my God, I would use this. And how can it solved a fundamental problem for me that I had, which was Salesforce, which is most people's fundamental problem. And I remember being like, well, how do I give you money for this? How can I like invest in this? Because that wasn't the original question. The original question was like, check this thing out, give us your thoughts on this product. And I also just love the fact that they had so many random people who had nothing to gain, like promoting their product. Like there's no bigger like testament than like an unsolicited testimonial. And so that was probably the last time I remember being wowed by a product. And I'm like a jaded, angry salesperson who hates change. Like show me Clary one more time and ask me if I want to update my pipeline in Clary and in Salesforce. Like why? Why do I want that? But that one for me was it just hit me in the feels of what I was like, of my problem. Now, I don't think their pitch was particularly unique. Like I can't say like, oh, we did this like breaking the frame thing here, this there. It was just, I suppose it just resonated with me on an emotional level. I wish I could tell you something better than that. I mean, the shitty ones, I don't feel like I need to go too deep into the shitty ones. They're just cookie cutter. They're just like, you clearly don't know anything about me or what I do. So why are we here? I do try to respond to those. And I'm like, yo, not right now, my man. Corp Bro LLC is on a hiring freeze and a spending freeze. So they tend to appreciate that. But that was the first and really only time.
Appreciate it.
How do you think about building and nurturing like your community of people, whatever that looks like for you? How do you do what's necessary to kind of bring them together, to keep them engaged, to help that community grow, and just generally like serve them, but also not in like a purely philanthropic way, but in a way that also obviously helps you as well?
Yeah. I can give you like a really good example. I mean, these layoffs are just like shitty for everyone. And like, I feel like I can't make any other jokes because there people are like, yo, real funny, but you realize there's people getting fired over here. And it's like, well, I guess I should make jokes about that because that's on everybody's mind. But on the flip side of that, I was like, well, I want my people to laugh more. In order for them to laugh more, they're going to need to find a job quicker. And so that was like the reason for developing Still Hiring Today, which is just a silly
your list, right?
Tracker. And the list, the list.
Tracker,
like the tracker, like it was a Google sheet. And then this other guy, Adam Schoenfeld, was like, hey, I can make this a lot better for you. Like, can I do that? And I was like, yeah, please. These people, they need this. And I want to stop talking about it. And I also need an excuse to continue to make fun of it. And so from a strategic standpoint, from a brand standpoint, I was like, well, I can buy myself a lot of goodwill with this. That was not the first intention of doing it. I was just like, who's got more connections in the world of tech and who's hiring than me, then I can like crowdsource quickly. So I did that, but it's not to say that in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, finally I can show people that Corporate Bro isn't just a fucking asshole. who just makes fun of people, that like there is another dimension here that isn't so outrageous and far-fetched that like, you know, that it doesn't feel contrived, because it's not. It genuinely is not contrived. It's never been contrived. It's not monetized, all these things. I want people to be happy so they can laugh more. So I get something from that. But also a big focus of what I'm looking at in my terms of my brand for this next year is, how do I add the other layers to Ross, who's not just like the funny douchebag, like who can talk about things in an intelligent way, who can like help people in these other ways. The more I can give to this community, the more they're going to stick around and be engaged. I really try not to directly monetize my audience, like asking them to pay for stuff. Yeah, I'll do brand ads from time to time, but that's kind of the game. And that's allows me to spend more time making the content I want to do. But I do think this hiring thing was a very important step for me in terms of like stepping away from just pure comedy, that there is like more to it.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was,
it's trying to be relevant. It's being relevant to me. It's like being quick and reactive to like what's happening. I mean, I would, not that I wish I could predict that we're headed towards a recession or that this was all going to happen, but like if I can respond quickly, then I can just be the first there, right? First mover's advantage in a lot of things is usually often the only advantage you need. So in that regard, I was like able to kind of capitalize in that.
Ross, I'm curious. So you've got still hiring today, Corp Capital, Bravado, Corporate Bro, SAD, SKO gigs. You're doing a lot of stuff for lack of a better word. How purposeful are you about like each project that you take on? How much time do you spend thinking about that, or do you just gravitate towards things that like you naturally find exciting?
I definitely gravitate towards things that I find exciting. I mean, some things, it's all about the timelines, right? Like still hiring had to happen as quickly as I possibly could. Like that was all day, every day, sitting on LinkedIn, responding to everybody telling me that their company was hiring so I could update it to the list. Just like shouldn't be texting and driving, but was at times. Like I had to be all over that. But whereas SAD, which, is a much longer 3-year project that thank God is finally going to come out in April.
Yeah.
There's a lot more detail and time. Like flew down to LA for a couple of days to do just sound editing for that. And for anyone, for context, SAD is the series about sales that is going to come out that I shot last August. So it's like a little mini sitcom, if you will, about a Series A sales team called Suckle. So you can use your imagination. And I'm excited for that to come out. But to me, that has been like a true dream for me. Like I have a lot of things I want to do in my life, and they're all kind of like taking little baby steps towards like getting there, and they don't happen linearly. But the prioritization thing is really important. Like, what do I have capacity for? I know January through March is like SCO season for the most part, with a few more sprinkled in there. It's like, that's the gauntlet. I understand that. Once that's done, it's like, I can focus on the bigger creative projects. Corp Capital, like, let's be honest, the macroeconomics are kind of shitty right now. And so nobody wants to invest in anything, which I would counter argue it's the best time, but that's not how everybody else feels. And so that's a little backburnered right now. It's still going. We're still doing it, but there's just certain things that are a little bit more pressing. And like, yeah, it is a prioritization game. That's why I work 7 days a week. But I also, that to say, I'll golf on a Tuesday. I'm golfing next Monday. I'm coming back from Orlando. I'm going straight to a bachelor party, and then I'm going to golf on Monday because that's what I want to do. And then I'll work that night.
Ross, how do you mentioned not wanting to like directly monetize your audience, and I know that's because you want to be able to accumulate as many followers as possible and then find other points of monetization afterwards. And obviously that's not the number one intent, but like, how do you think about paid community and folks having skin in the game and like making sure that what they're paying relative to the value they're getting is fair, comparatively speaking, to doing everything for free from like a demand gen standpoint, and then figuring out how you're making money on the back end. And the grain of salt here, like Scott's Patreon, very affordable, but a monthly subscription.
Yeah, I think he was mostly just taking a shot at me.
Yeah, I just think people who monetize their audience are dicks. I see the difference between me and Scott is Scott can provide value that is like truly like worth the price. And I genuinely mean that. For me, I'm going to make the content I want to make, and I didn't want to spend time making premium content. Like that stuff for me, because it's always just been about like the creative sketch, and I want as many people to laugh at it as possible. And I figured if eventually brands will kind of see it, like there's other little offshoots I can do. Also, the internet is just really fucking mean. And so if you try to monetize and do stuff, people will say some really hurtful shit. And that's not the reason, but part of it is I do think growth was kind of the KPI for me. Like, I just want to keep growing. I don't want to gate it. I don't want anybody to like not get to see something I've spent a bunch of time on. But a lot of like my videos don't have the same kind of direct value that I think like Scott, who's been a part of scaling a zillion companies, would have. Like, it's a little bit more, it's a little different. Mine's a little more entertainment focused, and his is more like functional and like helpful towards business building, if you will. And so I think mine's a different audience.
Perhaps, but you're also being a little bit humble. There's 3 types of content that I identify, at least. There's education, inspiration, and entertainment. That's it. I kind of can look at every post or every piece of content and kind of categorize it into one thing pretty clearly. The people, in my opinion, that are the best creators can hit all 3 at different times, and they showcase a different depth to themselves. I get bored with Scott if all he does is educate me. I get bored with Corp if all he does is entertain me. I get bored with Ryan if all he does is inspire me. That might just be how I view the world, but that's how I kind of think of it. And I think, you know, doing stuff like the job share thing that you did, and even this, you know, appearance right here, I got people messaging me on the side going, wow, I didn't know Ross like thought so in, you know, with depth about everything. And like you said
Brand
yourself,
building,
like
baby.
you're trying to like cross the chasm and show people like there's more than just this like character, right? So don't
For sure. But I also think like what you do a really good job of is like creating a group like this. You know, like I suppose I could be like, hey, I'll take however many people and we'll come like do a group. I think there's something to be said for like a really tight, powerful group of people versus like a bunch of followers kind of scattered out there to the wind. So there's also like a preference to it, right? And kind of what you want it to look like and the things that you may want to achieve in life and like what those goals look like. I think for me, I want to act on a network television show one day. I would also love to run a VC fund at some point. Those are a couple things I would like to do. I would like to give a TED Talk one day. And like, these are goals and things that I've written down at some point. And I think it all all my subconscious thoughts end up trying to manifest that in some way, shape, or form. And I guess I think maybe I don't want to put any gates on it until I get there, if you will. I probably could do the monetization of the audience thing, and like, yeah, some people will be mad about it, but like, who cares? And that's not quite the goal for me, I guess, at the moment. I guess is the simplest way.
We got a question from Evan, excuse me, Evan, and then Kelsey.
Hey, so I'm not that familiar with your content, so I don't know the full scope of things, but do you find that you have to strike a balance between consuming other content and creating in order to not be derivative, first of all, but also keep the canvas clear?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a fine line, right? Because I think watching other content can help inspire you into your own content and help you think of other ways. In comedy in particular, you're thinking about what's the game, right? And a game example might be like escalation. So something outrageous happens and something more outrageous happens and something completely outrageous and then something absolutely insane happens and then it ends. Or it's like a status switch, like Corp Bros bitching at the intern and then the CEO walks in and Corp Bros suddenly acting a lot like the intern in that moment. There's like different little games you can kind of come up with. And so I can get inspired to find those games by watching other things, but I also get really fearful that I'm going to be subconsciously influenced and try to make somebody else's content. But even more importantly than that, going down the rabbit hole of other people's content at times for me just makes me depressed. TikTok in particular is just a scrolling, just a never ending scroll of depression. And I'm just like, what am I doing? They're going in 30 minutes. Like, get out of here. Like, what am I doing? Suddenly I'm watching conspiracy theory shit or like watching videos of soldiers coming home and I'm sobbing for no reason. Like, why? What am I doing here? So I do think it is helpful for inspiration. And I do also think like social media in general is, well, I'm just gonna say it's AIDS for your body and your mind at times. So maybe limit it. You know, that's what I think.
Oh man,
As a
that's the
creator
first time
myself,
somebody's
I
got me
can-
to laugh out loud and wow.
I'm
As a
just
creator
saying,
myself, I can totally understand where you're coming from. Is that like a self-awareness piece that you're developing in the background to sort of be like, all right, this TikTok thread has gotten to be friggin' contagious now. I need to pump the brakes on it, or is that something that you segment time every day and like, all right, this is my time to just sort of like
that
relax.
I segment. I say, this is my time. I will put it on my calendar and be like, you get 15 minutes to browse, motherfucker. What are you going to find? And then it ends and you get out. It's the darkness of right before bed when you start scrolling and you're like, I shouldn't be here. And then it's late. But yes, I do make it pretty deliberate. I'll be doing like a writing session and I'll choose to spend part of it like watching other videos to see if I can spark an idea.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. It's a fair
All right,
question.
Kelsey. Let's go to Kelsey.
Hey, I'm curious, as somebody that's highly creative and putting out so much content on so many different platforms, do you do all the content yourself, or do you have teams of people that help you? And kind of like a two-part to that is like, how are you making sure that you're staying not only consistent, but creative and able to come up with more and more content everywhere?
Yeah. So I've got the second part. Can you ask the first part again? I just want to make sure I get it.
Yeah, so it's basically asking like, are you solely the person putting out and creating
Solely.
content, or do you
Yeah.
have teams of people that help you do that?
Yeah. So I would say it's about 98% me just doing it. I do what I don't do. The only thing I don't do is the editing of the cold call reenactments. It's the bravado squad that helps me with that. And those are much more highly produced. And so I just have, like I was saying earlier, just like the antenna has to be on at all times to spark ideas. And like when a moment of inspiration strikes, you have to stop everything else you are doing in your life and you have to use it in that moment. Like the best and most creative ideas you're going to have are going to happen randomly, and they're going to happen in a moment, and they're going to happen so fast, and they're going to be the best. It's most of the time when I sit down to write, I am just like, shit, extra shit. And like, that's just part of the process. You know, like writers talk about the write and the rewrite and the rewrite after that and so forth. I think my best stuff always happens the quickest. And if I don't stop in that moment to capture it, like I will tell people I'm in a conversation with them, I'm so sorry, I have a really good idea right now. And I do it like, and people are kind of used to it at this point. But the ideas, I'll also tell you, there will be long periods of time where you'll think you have no ideas, where all the ideas in the world are gone. There's not a single original idea out there.
I feel that way every fucking morning. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I have to write something today.
Seriously, it's just like it's such a drag, and then you'll have these days where 5 ideas come to you, and you'll be stoked. Yeah. I used to stock up content, be like, oh, I've got content for the next 6 weeks because I post once a week, and I feel great about that. And now I'm just like on the, oh God, what am I going to post today? Kind of train.
Do you get burnt out asking, or like, do you get burnt out talking about the same types of things all the time? Like with all the mass layoffs, like, does that ever start to just wear away at your soul?
Yeah.
We're not a joke for that one typical issue.
Well, I'll tell you this, I don't want to be corporate bro for forever at all. I want to go write something completely different. I love comedy. I love creating it. I don't want it to be goddamn corporate bro for forever. So like, the truth is, corporate bro, I hope that one day that people are like, you know, he's the guy like who did corporate bro back in the day. Like, you ever heard of that thing? Like, I would love that to be the thing and not be the only thing. So yes, I get burnt out about it all the time. I have all these other sketch ideas that have nothing to do with sales or business or anything else. And I'm like, well, I can't really spend much time on those right now because they're not going to work here.
They're not resonating. Yeah.
So,
Fair.
But it ebbs and flows a lot. Like, just realize that there's going to be probably a lot more shitty days in terms of creating content than good ones.
Thank you.
Of course.
Matt, let's go back to you.
Yeah, so kind of to that end, you had said before earlier you wanted to be on like maybe a network TV show or something like that. So with that, do you prefer kind of the writing, the ideation side, or the performing side of things?
I really love both, but I'm also, if they came to me and were like, hey, we want to like make Corporate Bro a HBO show, but we're gonna put Zac Efron in there, I'd be like, yes, please. He's way more jacked. So like let's roll with that. As long as I can kind of like be there, like be a production assistant, I'm in. I really do like both. I think as I've gotten older, potentially more appreciative of the arts, I'm like, why did I push so hard against like doing plays and writing growing up? Like I just wanted to play baseball, was that guy. And so if I could do it all over again, I would take more acting. I would do more acting. Like I take voice lessons, fun fact. Can I sing? Not at all. Am I ever going to sing for any of you? 0%. But like I want to be better at it. It's just like, it makes me super uncomfortable. And like my teacher's, she's like 10 years younger than me. And she's like, it's not that bad. And I'm like, I heard that. I can hear myself. It was shitty, but like, it's a weird discomfort that I kind of like. And so I don't know. It's
There's always voice. There's
like
always
both.
voice acting. There's always
Well,
voice
so
acting.
I've been doing a little bit of that too. I got my setup. I got my closet full of soundproofing and
Just picture your voice over some cartoon or animation
right.
show.
I would love to do that. Whoever wants to produce that, I'm all in. I have a voice reel of different voices and stuff that I do that also none of you will ever see, but or hear.
Wayne, let's go back to you. Or excuse me, Peter and then Wayne. Peter and then Wayne.
Yeah, so it seems like you have a disliking for marketers. I run a marketing agency, but hence running the agency, that's the easy part. Sales, that's the fucking hard part.
And that is your answer. That is your answer.
But so being in the agency, and because I have to do both the sales and the marketing, and not working for corporate, I completely understand how we both have to be extremely aligned. And actually, I got very frustrated with a client that now looks like they're going to pause everything, that I was delivering leads and begging for Salesforce data. I'm like, we're giving leads or converting, and you can't tell me where they're going. So I was upset as the marketer side and the owner of running this campaign. I'm like, are you just dropping this crap on the floor? So as a marketer, we sometimes get frustrated that it's like, I'm delivering leads, what's happening? And no, we're not saying sales are shitty. It's just like, just let us know so we can improve if they're not right, and improve the campaign so we get it more accurate. But I'm just curious why marketing.
Well, I think it's both. I mean, I don't think if you think, hey, would you blow me at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is a hot lead. I'd probably drop that on the floor. It's definitely, it's just having come from the sales side, right? Like it's the frustration that marketing, it's like we're sending you leads, but most of them, it's like, I'm not calling this intern at like a public school system right now. I think they got buying power. And then to me, it's also just, it's the lack of perspective on both sides that is like the issue. Good marketing is great. Like, let's just face it. I'm a marketer. Let's just face it. Right. And you can just cut that right out of this presentation, or I am going to just take you to court and we'll do that publicly. But I think there's just the assumption that sales should be converting these leads at a higher rate. Like when sales is so goddamn hard from a perspective of people who have never got on the phone with customers, who are writing things for customers that they've never fucking spoken to. That's what bothers me. That's what gets me fired up. And so that's why I say it should be a prereq for marketers who have to have sat in the SDR seat for 6 months, not just sales, just SDR. Go make those cold calls, go write those personalized emails, and then come back to me. You can go do marketing. You can put your beanie on. You can get your snake tattoo.
And when I have business discussions with customers, sometimes they're smaller customers, they're like, yeah, my close rate's like 80% or 90%. I said, bullshit. Because
probably
there's no way that could be. Those are very curated leads or referrals. And then I agree. But if I'm to feed you from top of funnel, there's no way your close rate can be that high.
I would agree with you. Look, both sides are guilty. I just, part of my brand and my shtick will always be like pro sales, and most of pro sales is anti-marketing. And so that's kind of the choice I usually make. That's kind of my character choice there, and character flaw. but I appreciate good mark.
At least it's a character choice for you. I actually believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to
have
be
no
diplomatic.
character.
So you're
I'm
saying
trying to be diplomatic.
we need zero marketing and just sales?
What's marketing? I never got a fucking warm lead in my life.
Yeah, I mean,
I worked for 20 years prospecting and doing everything on my own. I don't know what a warm lead is. You close 80% of your leads, raise your fucking price. That's the worst close rate I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
You want respect? Sign up for a fucking quota like I do.
Yeah.
And then get fired in 6 months as a VP of sales when you haven't hit any of your numbers. Adios. That's why salespeople hit marketing. You don't count because you run your own business. So you get a hall pass. You're not a VP of marketing.
That's all I'm saying. I mean,
no,
I'm sweating now, Scott. Let's go.
This is why people. Well, this is the only reason why people listen to me is because every now and then I let this rant out that makes you feel like you're in the movie Braveheart, and they're like, "Yes, let's go do something." The rest of it, what I say, is worthless and meaningless.
I was going off this morning about layoffs too. It was this morning. I was like pouring sweat, just shaking hand coffee, just angry about these. Anyway, whole other topic.
I gotta go to Wayne next. Wayne's been waiting patiently.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. So, Ross, the content I write almost exclusively on LinkedIn, like, calls out founders and VCs every fucking day because I know them.
Yes.
Some of them are friends. Some of them are associates. And, honestly, I've been in their circle of trust at one point in time, and I've been part of that conversation, the really shitty conversations that they have. Everything from sexism through to, just shitty operational advice. So, like, I'm basically the guy that's been on the inside that stepped back outside, and I run my own consulting practice. And, a lot of the content I write, it's supposed to be educational and so on and so forth, but some of it's a bit ranty. Some of it's a little bit like, sort your shit out. Basically, this is bullshit.
Right.
But I have to say, I write and then choose not to post a lot of content because I'm just like, this is just like. I've even had some VCs be like, "That was a little bit. Were you talking about me?" And I'm
have
like,
to ask.
I'm like, if I was, what does that mean? It's like, well, you want to, like, just keep everyone on side. And I'm like, I don't know. But so I was intrigued by your comment earlier where you said, like, there's some things that you choose not to post on LinkedIn because they're too offensive. So with that in mind, I was just wondering how you draw that line.
Yeah, my line tends to be less about the ranting and call out stuff and more about language choice than is in some of my videos or themes. I like to believe I have a wide range of humor, but a lot of it is lowbrow at times. And, like, some of it I will stand, like, one example, I did post this on LinkedIn, is I did, and apologies just in advance, I did something called Jesus Christ Inside Sales Rep. And it was just like, if Jesus was an inside sales rep. And, religion can be a touchy subject for some people. People were pretty pissed off that I put Jesus in a video, even though he was the top rep. I don't get what they were mad about. Like, he was the best rep in the game. And so that one I went back and forth on for a while. I got a few death threats for that one. I was like, oh, my first death threat. I'm doing something right. And that became like a whole thing. But certain things like that, for example, I will just stand behind, because to me, I'm like, this was quality. Like, if I was taking jabs at the religion for just the sake of taking jabs at it, like, not really a good look. It's hard to describe because there's a nuance to certain things. And for me, I kind of draw a nuanced line that is perhaps unfair when other people disagree with me. Then I just think they're wrong and stupid, because they're wrong and stupid. But the stuff that I don't put on there is usually, like, some of these cold calls are vicious language, and like, someone is just going to flag me for, I got flagged for bullying. I played both characters, bullying myself, and I got suspended for bullying myself. So it's more that I'm fearful that LinkedIn, the platform itself, is just going to pull stuff and, like, yank me. It's less about what I think others are going to think about me, because if they follow my stuff and have seen my stuff, maybe a first timer is going to go away, and that's okay. If they don't like what I do, that is totally, a lot of people don't like what I do, and that's fine.
It doesn't matter what you say. Once you reach a certain level of number of followers or whatever, anything you say, somebody's going to come at you.
Yeah, there was a comment I got the other
come
day that
at
was,
you like hard, and you're just like, wait, how could anybody read what I just wrote and come at me? So when Ross was saying like got my first death threat or whatever, like I've had all those things before as well. It's just like,
it's a badge of honor.
What?
You know?
Yeah. I used to kind of ignore it. I'm a little more grouchy lately, and I'm kind of like punching back at people.
I've been responding, and I get like
I have
in
been
trouble
too
with,
lately.
Yeah.
Not
no,
recommended necessarily. Just
especially in the DMs. I'm just like, who's gonna post this on LinkedIn and like take me down? I was like, no, they're wrong. I'll stand behind this. And I just look like such a whiny little bee, because they said one little thing and caught me like I might have been drinking that night. It's like 1 a.m. and I might just be like ready to fight someone. So yeah. Some people deserve it.
Great place to take out your anger on clients, prospects who ghosted you, all this kind of stuff.
People have shit to say about anything. Just there's always someone's got some shit to say.
All right, let's go to Chase. Has one question, and then we'll let Ross kind of wrap it up and get on out of here. Chase, let's go to you.
Quick question. This is like a Tim Ferriss question. If you had one book to recommend to a salesperson or just in life general, what book would you recommend us to read?
Ooh,
that's made a difference in your life.
Ooh, Ender's Game. No, did. But
hey, that's mine. That's mime.
Ender's Game's the shit. I love that book,
dude. There's a whole. Anyways, I'll send it to you later. But somebody just did this whole. Some company did this whole thing where they asked like 30 sales leaders their #1 book about sales and life, and you could find it. Mine says Ender's Game.
It's fun. Goddamn brilliant book. I unfortunately. I see you, Audrey. I'm gonna go with a self-help book, but it's not like a sales book. It's called Acting with Power. It was written by one of my professors, and it's about the dynamics of power and how to make yourself more powerful in the situations. It's both like psychological and physical about how you can show up in life.
Author's name?
Deborah Grunfeld, Dr. Grunfeld. Grunfeld. Yeah, thank you. And about how we can give other people, how giving up power is also an extremely powerful thing to do. It's to me, it was about learning how to command a room and command a group of people and lead a group of people. And that's always fascinated me. Just like leadership as a whole and power dynamics, and how can we empower others and give it up, but also like in doing so look a lot more powerful. So that was always a fascinating thing for me, just in terms of like leadership and managing people and so forth. I put it on the plane of like Amy Cuddy's stuff I was talking about earlier, the power pose.
Awesome. This has been a blast, man. This has been one of the best episodes in a long, long time, I think. So thank you to Corporate Bro and Bravado for stopping by and spending some time with all of us. What do you want to say as a parting shot to everybody?
What do I want to say? God, you should pull me out, get parting words.
Yeah, you get parting shot. Parting shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the one thing that's so weird about all this stuff is that people are interested in things that I have to say, which is I still haven't come to grips with. So I guess thank you guys for you could be anywhere in the world right now. You certainly didn't have to be on Zoom. And so I'm just thankful that you guys are here and willing to have these conversations with me. I do appreciate them. I love the questions. I think there's just like a lot of nuance and a lot of depth in a lot of these things that we're talking about. And it's hard to convey on social media. It's hard to convey in text posts and even videos and so forth. And so it's nice to actually connect with the humans that are making a difference in this stuff. And, thank you for your time. That's it. That's all I got. Oh, sales are dope. Never ever stop selling. That's sadness. Bless up. So if you see a salesperson in the street, salute them because they're doing God's work. That's all I got to say.
All right, everybody. Y'all have a great night. Thanks again, Corporate Bro. We'll see you next time on
Scotty,
Tequila
we'll see
Tuesday.
you soon. Later, brother.
Yes, sir.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.